Welcome to this explainer on the Stoic blueprint for financial resilience. Right now, in 2026, there's this very specific kind of anxiety humming in the background of almost everyone's lives. You absolutely feel it when you check out at the grocery store and realize a standard carton of eggs now practically requires financing. You feel it when you pay your rent or when you open those utility bills. It's the visceral, heavy reality of just trying to survive as the cost of living keeps climbing relentlessly. We're constantly bombarded with this economic tension, and honestly, it can feel incredibly paralyzing. But what if the ultimate tool for financial survival wasn't a new budgeting app or some aggressive side hustle, but a 2,000-year-old philosophy?
Consider this brutal truth about money and survival right now. The system is getting more expensive, but panicking about the math won't change the numbers. Today, we're going to completely shatter that panic you might be feeling and replace it with an ancient, battle-tested framework for true resilience.
Section 1. The 2026 Economic Tension, the Cost of Living Squeeze. Okay, let's dive into this. The squeeze you're feeling is entirely real, and we need to validate that. You feel trapped, watching your hard work just get eaten away. Just look at the hard macroeconomic data, 2.7%. According to the UN Trade and Development's World Economic Situation and Prospects Report for 2026, global economic growth is projected to slow down to this very sluggish number. This is below 2025 levels, and notably, it's way below the pre-pandemic average.
When you actually break down this UNTAD report, it paints a pretty tough picture. Slower global growth is coupled with the fact that high prices are actively eroding real incomes. And we're not talking about luxury goods here. We're talking about the essentials: food, energy, housing costs. They're skyrocketing and remaining a major source of pressure everywhere. Add subdued investment and tight fiscal space globally to the mix, and, well, it becomes very clear why you might feel like you're running on a treadmill just to stay in place.
And this brilliantly illustrates just how global this really is. This data comes from Numbeo, which is the world's largest crowdsourced cost of living database. Whether you are living in Bermuda, Switzerland, or the Solomon Islands, this cost of living crisis is a massive, heavy anchor. Rent, groceries, fuel, they're going up everywhere. The external world is chaotic, it's expensive, and it's incredibly stressful. So the real question is, how do we survive it without losing our minds?
Section 2. Seneca and Practicing Poverty, the Stoic Pivot.
To survive this modern, neon-lit tension, we actually need to leave it behind for a minute and step into the timeless, grounded strength of ancient Rome. Listen to this disruptive question posed by the philosopher Seneca. He asked, "Is this the condition that I feared?" And you have to understand, this wasn't just some theoretical mind game for him. It was a physical, literal practice.
See, Seneca was an advisor to the Emperor Nero. He was, by all accounts, one of the absolute wealthiest men in the world at the time. Think of him as the ancient equivalent of a modern tech billionaire. Yet, despite his immense wealth and elite status, Seneca intimately understood the psychological trap of financial comfort. He knew that relying solely on external wealth actually made you incredibly fragile.
So, what did this unimaginably rich man actually do? He undertook what is known as voluntary discomfort. Seneca would routinely spend days eating only cheap, very basic food. He'd swap his fine robes for rough, inexpensive clothes. Now, why on earth would a billionaire do this? He was purposefully stripping away his fear of loss. He was physically confronting his worst economic nightmares, losing all his money and his status, just to realize that he could easily survive it. He discovered that the fear of poverty was actually much worse than the reality of basic survival.
So the crucial point is this: your true wealth is not your bank balance. Your bank balance, that can be destroyed by inflation, by a slow global growth rate of 2.7%, or by global supply chain collapses. Your true wealth is your absolute internal resourcefulness. It's the rock-solid knowledge that even if you have to cut back, even if things get incredibly tight, you will endure.
Let's move to Section 3 and see how this builds. The Dichotomy of Control, Dividing the World.
How does this ancient mindset build into the ultimate psychological tool for modern economic survival? Well, it comes down to the foundational mechanism of Stoic philosophy, spearheaded by Epictetus, the dichotomy of control. This principle proposes that peace of mind, and particularly financial tranquility, is achieved by categorizing absolutely everything into two distinct spheres: the things within our control and the things entirely outside of it.
Now, what's really interesting about this is how perfectly it maps onto our modern wallets and economic data. On the one hand, you have the uncontrollables. The UNCTD inflation rates, global supply chains, the exact cost of that carton of eggs we talked about earlier. You literally cannot control these. But on the other hand, you have your controllables. Your reactions to those prices, your personal resourcefulness, your judgments about your situation, and the direct actions you take to budget and adapt.
Look, when the economy tightens, you have to stop bleeding energy on the uncontrollables. Surrender the desire to control what you simply cannot regulate. It does absolutely nothing but drain your battery. Instead, strip down your focus to what is essential. Aligning your will with reality makes room for a much more harmonious and genuinely powerful existence.
Section 4. Building Financial Resilience, the Action Plan.
So how do we actually put this into practice when the bills are sitting right there on the table? Let's transition from philosophical theory into a concrete, modern action plan, using a highly effective 4-step methodology outlined by the Stoic app. Identify, reflect, act, and adjust. Let's walk through exactly how to execute this in your day-to-day life.
First up, identify and list. Sit down and write out every single thing causing you financial stress right now. Get it all on paper. Then, categorize them. Is this specific thing controllable, or is it uncontrollable? Second, reflect. Look hard at the uncontrollables, the UNCTAD reports, the global housing market. Acknowledge them, and then consciously decide to relinquish your mental hold over them. You have to stop agonizing over the macroeconomic numbers that you personally have no power to change.
Next, act. For the items on your list that you actually can control, things like your discretionary spending, upskilling for a better job, or your choice to practice voluntary discomfort just like Seneca did, create a clear action plan. Prioritize these based on their actual impact on your well-being. And finally, adjust your perspective. Shift your focus from the outcome, like hitting some specific net worth, to the process of becoming internally adaptable. Embrace a growth mindset where your ability to learn and adapt to any economy is what truly matters in the end.
I want to leave you with this final, absolutely vital thought. The data tells us prices will rise in 2026. That is completely out of your hands. But your dignity, your character, and your internal peace, those are non-negotiable, and they are entirely up to you. Cut the noise of the panic, protect your focus, and adapt. So, when your next bill arrives, will you panic at the math, or will you cash in on your character? Keep learning, keep adapting, and I'll see you in the next explainer.